What if there was no money in life? What if, tomorrow morning, you woke up and the world ran out of money? There's no cash in your wallet, no credit cards, no bank accounts, no paycheck, no price on anything. You walk into the store, pick up food, and no one asks you to pay. Sounds like a dream, right? But wait, because the moment money disappears, everything we know about power, survival, work, freedom, and justice is forever changed. Today on Specvio, we're diving deep into one of the most mind-bending questions humanity has ever faced. What if there was no money in life? Stay with me because by the end of this video, you might realize that money isn't just something we use. It's something that silently controls us. Hey, welcome back to Specvio, the channel where we don't just ask, what if questions, we live inside them. If you like deep thoughts, future scenarios, history, science, and alternative facts, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. Why does money exist? Before we can even begin to imagine a world without money, we need to take a step back and understand why money exists. Because money didn't just appear out of nowhere. It wasn't invented to control people. It wasn't created to divide the rich and the poor. Money was created to solve a problem. Thousands of years ago, human societies didn't have banks, currency, or credit cards. Instead, people relied on something much simpler. Barter: you had wheat, I had fish, you needed protein, I needed grain. So we traded. At first, it worked. Small villages, small needs, familiar faces, but as societies grew, barter began to break down. What if I needed shoes but you didn't want wheat? What if the only shoemaker lived 3 villages away? What if my fish went bad before I could find the right trade? Suddenly, trade was no longer about value. It was about timing, coincidence, and luck. Economists call this problem the double coincidence of wants. Both people wanted what the other had at exactly the same time. And most of the time, they didn't. That's when humans got incredibly smart. They created money, not as wealth, not as power, but as a tool. Money became a common language that everyone could understand. Something that didn't rot like food. Something that could travel between cities and survive the seasons. For the first time, value could be measurable, stored, transported, exchanged with someone. Money solved the limitation of barter. It allowed farmers, builders, artists, and merchants to acquire skills. It made long-distance trade possible. It let people save today for tomorrow. In many ways, money helped build civilization itself. So no, money wasn't bad. Money was useful. But here's the twist: efficiency always came with a price. No monetary value could be measured. People began to measure each other. Skills, time, human effort too. All were reduced to numbers. And that's when money gradually stopped being just a tool and began to become something much more powerful. Something that could shape behavior, influence choices, and silently control life. And that brings us to the next question. If money solves so many problems, what happens when it disappears? The day money disappears. Now let's imagine something radical. Tonight, while the world sleeps, money disappears. Not slowly, not over decades, instantly. At midnight, every currency on earth loses its meaning. Dollars, euros, pounds, pesos. Still in print, still digital, but suddenly nothing. You wake up the next morning and check your phone. Your bank balance is still there, but it doesn't matter anymore. Because money doesn't buy anything anymore. First, there's confusion. People assume it's a glitch, a system glitch, a temporary outage. Then the sense recedes. Stock markets freeze. Banks close their doors. ATMs stop working. Online payments fail. The businesses don't know how to operate. Employees don't know why they should show up. And the most important question echoes everywhere. How will we survive if the money runs out? Within hours, grocery stores are packed, not by shoppers, but by fear. Not because they're out of food, but because trust is gone. People don't rush for luxury items. They rush for essentials. Food, water, medicine. Because when money disappears, survival becomes the new currency. Governments step in quickly. Emergency declarations. Calming voices on TV. Stay home. Stay organized. Resources will be shared. But trust is fragile. Because for generations, money has decided who eats, who owns, who waits. And now that system is silent. The streets don't immediately flare up. What comes first is some calm, anxiety. Neighbors see each other differently. Not as buyers or sellers, but as competitors for resources. This is the moment where society reaches a crossroads. One path leads to cooperation, the other leads to chaos. And which path we take depends on something far more powerful than money: human behavior. Because when money disappears, what's left is not equality, it's uncertainty. And uncertainty forces us to reveal who we really are. How will people work without money? Now comes the question that stops most people. If there is no money, why would anyone work? Think about it. No salary, no hourly wage, no bonuses, no promotions attached to a paycheck. For a moment the world goes silent. Alarm clocks stop ringing. Office buildings lie empty. Travel disappears. At first, many people will choose to rest, not because they are lazy, but because for the first time in their lives, they are not forced to drive. But something interesting happens next. The work doesn't stop, that changes. Doctors still show up not because of the money, but because people are sick. Firefighters still respond, because emergencies don't wait. Engineers still build because infrastructure still matters, and teachers? They never stop teaching. Because money has existed long ago, humans have worked to survive, protect, and improve lives. In a world without money, work becomes the purpose, not the profit. People gravitate toward what they're good at, what they care about, what the community needs. Creativity explodes. Artists create without worrying about sales. Inventors experiment without chasing investors. Builders focus on function, not margins. But then comes the uncomfortable question. Who does the jobs no one wants? Who cleans the streets? Who handles the waste? Who works in hazardous environments? This is where idealism meets reality. In a world without money, societies will need new systems. Circular labor, community duty, automation, social recognition. Work will not be rewarded in cash. It will be rewarded in status, respect, and trust. But here's the danger. If contribution defines value, then those who control the definition of contribution gain power. And power, even without money, can still be abused. Some people will work harder than others. Some will contribute more. Some will contribute less. And without money to balance the effort, society will need something stronger: shared responsibility. A world without money will not ask, "What do you earn?" It will ask, "What do you give?" And that question is a much more demanding one than any paycheck. Because once the money is gone, you can no longer hide behind it. Your value is seen, your effort is important, and your absence is felt. And that brings us to the next challenge. If people work differently, how do they live differently? How do people get food, shelter, and health? When money disappears, the most important question is not about comfort. It's about survival. Because without money, nothing is bought, but everything is still necessary. Food doesn't stop being necessary, shelter doesn't lose its importance, and disease doesn't wait for the system to adjust. So how does a world without money respond? The first change is philosophical. Food, shelter, and healthcare stop being commodities and stop being human rights. Farms no longer grow food to sell, they grow food to eat. Warehouses don't track profits, they track supply and demand. Distribution centers replace grocery stores. Instead of prices, you see quantity. Instead of checkout lines, you see allocation. Everyone gets what they need, not what they can afford. At least that's the ideal. Technology plays a huge role here. AI predicts consumption. Automation increases food production. Smart systems reduce waste. In theory, there's enough for everyone. But the theory doesn't always live up to reality. What happens when demand exceeds supply? Who gets more when there's less? Families, children, the elderly. These decisions are no longer economic, they're moral. Housing is changing too. No mortgages, no rent, no real estate market. Homes are assigned based on family size, need, and availability. Sounds reasonable, unless someone wants more space, or a better location, or a house with a view. Without money, desire doesn't disappear, it just loses a price tag. Healthcare becomes universal by default. Doctors treat because healing matters. Hospitals operate because lives matter, but resources are limited. Not every treatment can be given immediately. Not every technology is available to everyone, so systems are prioritized. And whenever systems prioritize, someone feels left behind. This is where tensions rise. Because a world without money demands something rare. Trust. Believe that the system is fair. Believe that your neighbor isn't taking more than you. Believe that tomorrow, there will still be enough. Without that trust, fear returns, and fear breeds hoarding. And hoarding breeds scarcity, and scarcity breeds conflict. A world without money does not automatically create equality, it creates a test. A test of organization, a test of morality, and most of all, a test of human cooperation. And this brings us to the most painful truth. When money disappears, power does not disappear. It changes hands. The pros: a world without money. Let's pause for a moment. Because if we just talk about the risks, we miss why this idea is so powerful in the first place. A world without money is not just a fantasy. For many, it's a dream. Imagine waking up without financial fear. No bills waiting, no debt trailing you. No silent worries about rent, mortgages, or medical expenses. In a world without money, survival is not something you earn. It's something you're guaranteed. Poverty ends overnight. Not because people suddenly become rich, but because no one is allowed to go below zero. Homelessness no longer makes sense. Empty homes exist, so people live in them. Hunger becomes a problem of supply, not a moral failure. And when the pressure to survive is gone, something incredible happens. People breathe. Parents spend more time with their children. People sleep better. Mental health improves. Work becomes a choice, not a trap. You don't pursue jobs you hate just to survive. You learn, you explore. You create. Art flourishes, music grows bolder. Innovation accelerates. History shows us something interesting. Some of humanity's greatest ideas didn't come from profit. They came from curiosity. In a world without money, competition softens. Cooperation increases. People don't ask, how much does it pay? They ask, does it help? Crime also decreases. When basic needs are met, despair disappears. Theft loses its purpose. Violence loses its fuel. This world does not reward greed. It rewards contribution. Success is not measured by wealth but by influence. For the first time, value becomes human. And for a moment, it seems we have everything figured out. But this is where we have to be honest, because every system, even a beautiful one, casts a shadow. And that shadow waits. Disadvantages. The dangerous side. This is the part that most people avoid talking about. Because a world without money seems reasonable until you ask a simple question. Who decides? When money disappears, choice doesn't disappear, control takes its place. Resources are still limited. Time is still limited. Energy is still limited. And when something is limited, someone has to decide how to use it. In a world without money, that power is transferred to systems, councils, or authorities. First, they promise fairness. Algorithms calculate needs. Committees design distribution. But over time, something subtle happens. The rules get stricter, exceptions grow. Power is concentrated. Because when you control food, housing, and healthcare, you don't need money to govern people. You control survival. Another problem arises: motivation. Most people contribute. Some people contribute a lot. But some don't, not because they can't, but because they choose not to. Without incentives, societies must rely on social pressure, impulsive duties, tracking participation, and the moment participation is tracked, freedom begins to shrink. People begin to feel watched, decided, measured, not by income, but by utility. Then there's innovation. Without reward, risk-taking becomes sluggish. Great achievements demand sacrifice. Long hours, obsessive focus. In a world where everyone gets the same result, some might ask, why push so hard? And finally, there is human nature. Greed doesn't disappear when there is money. It just changes form. People tend to accumulate influence rather than cash. Instead of wealth, they pursue power. History warns us, whenever resources are centralized, corruption follows. A world without money could lead to forced labor, restricted mobility, controlled information. Not because people are evil, but because the system is hungry for order. This is the unpleasant truth. Money can be corrupt, but removing it does not eliminate inequality. It changes who holds the power. And once power is concentrated, it is almost impossible to get it back. So now we are left with the most difficult question of all: is money the problem, or is it us? So can a world without money really work? The honest answer is yes, but not everywhere, and not yet. We've seen versions of this before. Small communities where people share resources, disaster zones where money temporarily loses meaning, families that run entirely on trust, not transactions. In these moments, something powerful emerges. People don't help because they get paid, but because they are human. Now imagine a future where technology fills the gap. Artificial intelligence manages resources fairly, automation takes over dangerous labor. Abundant clean energy eliminates scarcity. In this world, money starts to feel old. But today's world is different. 8 billion people, different cultures, different values, different levels of trust. Taking money without correcting human behavior will not create freedom. It will create confusion. The real future may not be money. It may be better money systems that reward participation without crushing dignity, economies that serve people, not the other way around, because money itself was never the villain. It was a mirror, and sometimes we don't like what it shows us. Money is one of humanity's greatest inventions and its greatest challenge. It has built civilizations, connected continents, and lifted millions out of poverty, but it has also created tension, inequality, and fear. A world without money can be peaceful or painfully controlled. The difference will not be the system, it will be us. Because no matter what we remove, money, borders, technology, we keep our values with us. So the real question is not, what if there was no money? It's, what kind of world do we actually want to create? Now let me ask you something. If money disappeared tomorrow, would you feel free or scared? Tell me in the comments. I genuinely want to hear your perspective. If this video made you think for even a second, press that like button, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe. It helps this idea reach more curious minds. This is Specvio, where we explore ideas that challenge reality itself. If you enjoy deep what-if scenarios, alternative futures, and big questions about humanity, hey, you haven't subscribed yet? Why not? Hurry up, turn on notifications, and join the global community of deep thinkers. Until next time, stay curious, stay human, and never stop asking, what if?